When it comes to being prepared, there was always one thing that both my father and both my grandfathers told me I should always have with me. And I'm going to let you know what that is right now. Oh, hey, how you doing? So, one thing that my dad and both my grandfathers always tried to teach me was that no matter what you do in life, always make sure you're carrying your pocket knife with you. I'm not necessarily trying to advocate for keeping weapons on you at all times. That's not what I'm trying to do. But there is definitely a use value in keeping a pocket knife with you at all times. What I'm going to show you today is just an idea of what you should always have with you, no matter where you are, no matter when it is. And I promise you will always have a use for it in most cases. So when I was about, I don't know, maybe 6 years old, maybe 7 years old, my dad gave me my very first pocket knife, and he told me, always carry it with you. And I actually still have that with me today. This is an old little miniature buck knife, probably about 1.75 inches, 1.5 inches. I don't know what it is, something like that. And kept it in my pocket for a good number of years. And basically, he said, always make sure you have your pocket knife with you. And I'd go over to my grandparents' house. I remember we would sit underneath a willow tree, and my granddad, he would sit underneath the willow tree in the summertime with a little lawn chair, and he'd pull out his knife and he'd just be whittling on a piece of wood, and I tell you, that was you pick a branch off fell on the ground from a willow tree or whatever it was, and he'd just be whittling away at it. He'd just make little things and really just take the bark off of it. He wasn't really an artist or anything like that, but it was just fun to watch him do it. He always had that knife with him, and when he was in the house, he'd have it sitting on his little coffee table next to his favorite chair. He used it to open up mail and so forth. My dad always had one. He used it, whenever he needed to, gouge a hole in something or whatever. But they always had a pocket knife, and they always told me to carry one as well. So, I highly recommend it to all of you guys out there, and ladies too. You never know when you might need a pocket knife. And like I said, this is my very first one. I still have it probably 40 years later. And I don't really carry that one around very much anymore, but there's quite a few different types. And, if I were to go into detail on all the different brands and types and qualities and such and so forth, it's just like I have a 3-hour long video, and I don't want to do that. So, just to let you know, I just give you what I generally carry on a daily basis, and whatever you choose, that's obviously up to personal preference. Just whatever you carry, just carry it safely. And of course, if you're under 18, I'm sure you need to get your folks' permission before you go out and buy some deadly device. So anyway, when I'm at work, I always carry with me this. This is a Craftsman. This is actually a box cutting knife. So I have a replaceable blade in it. And the reason why I carry this at work is because the job that I do requires me to cut through things that this blade is absolutely necessary for. I could use a regular knife for it, sure, but because I don't want to sit and sharpen my knife on a daily basis, it's kind of a pain in the butt to sit and sharpen something every day if you have other things going on. So I like to have a blade that's replaceable. So what I do is I bought this Craftsman, and it has just a standard utility blade in it, and I carry this with me. I try to get the best quality that I can. Always get the best quality you can afford. This one here is stainless steel, and I believe it's cherry wood. Probably ran me about $35. Made by Craftsman, and this is absolutely my go-to when I'm in my workplace. Right now I work as an AV technician. In a previous video, you might have heard me doing painting work, and I did painting work, like I said, for probably 20 plus years. But then I ended up going into the electronics trade because I happen to be pretty, gifted at that. I don't want to say gifted like I'm somebody special, but I'm very good at it, and it makes good money. So in that particular job, I find that this blade is more useful than a standard pocket knife because I can just swap the blades out quickly. Next, you have what's called a Leatherman's tool. Leatherman's tools are also extremely useful. This one here is a pretty standard one. It's not an actual Leatherman made by Ozark Trail or something that nobody sponsors these videos or anything like that, but they're all generally the same thing. It starts off looking like this, and basically when you open it up, it's a pair of pliers like so. You can use it as a pair of pliers if you're a fisherman, if you're looking to have different types of tools on your belt without taking up too much space. Leatherman tools are the way to go. They've always got various types of blades on them. There's this blade here. There's also, I believe, a saw blade in here if you need to use a small saw for something. There's a small screwdriver in here, and then of course you have your standard 2-inch blade that goes along with it, and also I believe there's a corkscrew and some kind of other, I don't know, I use this to pick my nails. I don't know what you'd use that for, but whatever you'd need to use it for. There's a number of things you can do on here. There's a screwdriver, as I said. So they're very useful for when you're on a job site where you're needing to have quick access to a tool that you may not normally carry with you in your tool pouch, or maybe if you're going fishing or something, you need to be able to get a hook out of a fish's mouth, whatever you need to use it for. I find this very useful. I don't carry it as much because most of the time what I end up using is my buck knife. When I upgraded from my little miniature child version, of my little, I think they call these like Buck Atoms or Buck Nano, or I don't know what the hell they call them. But anyway, when I upgraded from that, I went with my standard buck knife. And if I'm not at work where I would need my utility knife, I use a standard buck. My buck knife is a Buck 112. And the reason why I chose a Buck 112 is because the state that I live in has a law that says that you cannot have anything larger than a 3-inch blade. The Buck 112, which is absolutely gorgeous, just so you know. I mean, it is extremely useful. It feels great in your hand. The Buck 112 has a 3-inch blade. I'm guessing that Buck probably made this particular model of knife for states that have the 3-inch blade law, because as long as I have a blade that's 3 inches or less, I'm not going to get hassled by the police, or most of the time I'm not going to get hassled by security. But the 3-inch blade is plenty big for doing whatever you need to do with it. It is super sharp, and I found that I pretty much pull this out of the holster several times a day whenever I am carrying it outside of work. I got a leather holster that made by Buck that comes along with it. Again, Buck is not sponsoring this video, but it is an absolute wonderful blade to have. It feels great in your hand. It even has little finger impressions on there so that when you're holding on to it, you know you're holding something solid. Buck is a great manufacturer. I highly recommend them. Their knives are beautiful. The brass on here is shiny. It's gorgeous. It's easy to clean. It's easy to sharpen. I absolutely love this blade. I use this, like I said, multiple times a day. The go-to standard for bucks is the Buck 110. So if you're in a state that doesn't have the 3-inch law, I highly recommend not going with the 112 and going ahead and getting the Buck 110. The Buck 110 is a 3 3/4 inch blade, which is just a slightly larger version of this. And I have one somewhere around here, but bottom line is it's a gorgeous knife. Highly recommend Buck knives. If you're going to choose one, as I said, check your laws in your state. Make sure if you're under 18 you have your parents' permission. But if your laws limit you to 3 inches, go with your buck 12. This is the way to go. If you don't have that 3-inch law, go with your buck 10. And if you can, choose a blade that has the handle that has the finger impressions in it. And those finger impressions really give you a good feel. So make sure you always carry your pocket knife with you. Don't leave home without it. And don't go to Millennium Park with it, which I found out last weekend. I went into Chicago with my wife for a birthday weekend, and we were going to go to Millennium Park, and apparently they have security that wand you down. And believe it or not, even though this is a state legal 3-inch pocket knife, the security staff at Millennium Park will not let me into their park to walk through their trees. Not that it was that big of a loss, because where I live there are plenty of trees, there's plenty of greenery. If you're in Chicago, that's pretty much the only greenery you get. But out here where I live, it's no problem to be walking around with this, and it's no problem to find all the greenery and trees I need. So the fact that I could not go into Millennium Park was not really that big of a loss. Anyway, make sure you're always carrying your pocket knife. My granddad always had one when he was whittling his wood. He always carried it with him. My dad always had a pocket knife with him. Make sure you carry your pocket knife. Never leave home without it. And I guarantee you will be happy, because you will find uses for that beyond measure all the time. Take care, and check out some of my other videos left and right here.